All right, and we're live. Paul, really, really nice to see you after so much time. Thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you very much. Yeah, really good to see you. It's been a long time.
It has been a long time. It's going to be great to catch up. And last week we had Tom Williams on the podcast. Really, really interesting chat. Tom Williams of Bloodgate infamy. So much to learn from that conversation. So if you haven't listened to that, please do go back and check it out. This conversation I think is going to be equally as good. Lots and lots to learn from this conversation with you, Paul, about mental health, about challenge, adversity, fundraising for your charity. So really looking forward to it. Jerry, how's things with you in Rutland?
Yeah, good. I really enjoyed that chat we had with Tom on Monday as well. I think there's so much that people can learn about that, and actually it relates very well to our chat with Paul today, because there's a massive mental health aspect to Tom's story. So I highly recommend that, and reminded me that here I am now, sort of putting my bike back together after it was damaged on the rally last week.
Well, you had quite an arduous week last week, didn't you, Jerry?
Yeah, it was pretty arduous. I mean, I'm going to say right away, in terms of this podcast, nothing compared to what we're going to hear about today. But it's done a fair bit of damage to me, and the bike needs a bit of TLC. But here's a great story to start off today. I was down at the service station, picking up some oil and getting the bike filled up yesterday. I've been away for 1 week, and they've started work on the last remaining McDonald's in Britain. Previously, Rutland, my home, was the only county in England not to have a McDonald's, and I was down at the service station. Sign's gone up. I mean, there's a lesson there. You've got to stay on the job, right? You can't afford to go away when you've got something that important going on in your life.
Well, you should have at least chained Michelle, your wife, to the gates to stop the bulldozers from coming in.
Do you know what? I think I'm going to take that as a lesson learned. Thanks, Reese. That's a good point.
Good. Paul, well, once again, thank you for joining us. And today we're going to hear about a challenge involving the length and breadth of the UK. That's slightly more arduous than Jerry's experience last week. Not to take anything away from what you were doing, Jerry, and for a fantastic cause. But no, your story really is next level, Paul. Before we get into that, it would be great if you could set the scene. Clearly, we've got a long history. It'd be great if you could set the scene and talk about your career in the army from day one up until now.
Great. So I joined the army in 2003, early on in the year at 16 years old. I went through to the Household Cavalry Regiment, the Blues and Royals. And at the age of 20, I got the call up in 2006 to go to Helmand Province, which I was super excited about. Being young and I was a gunner. I was, we heard a lot about Afghanistan with what was going on before that. And we were the first ones to go into Helmand Province. So we were super excited and super buzzing for it. The whole tour itself, it lasted for 5 months, and we lived in the desert the whole time. We didn't come back once, apart from after I got blown up from rocket propelled grenades to change my vehicle, and then we were back out again. So it was very kinetic, lots of fighting, lots of things that you would expect to happen. But as a young trained soldier, it was everything that I thought it was going to be, and it was great, to be honest. From there, I met you. Sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say, Paul, and that's why so many people joined up at that time, right? It's because it was such an active period of time for the British Army in both Afghanistan and then as you'll go on to describe in Iraq, right, which is where we met.
Yeah, it was just within 6 months later I was training to go to Iraq. So I went from being an extremely kinetic battlefield to what we was doing, which was covert surveillance. So shooting with a camera. So going from very kinetic to it's just as dangerous, but not much fighting going on in sense of firing rounds. But it was an extraordinary tour we had in 2007. Very everything you could want to do as a reconnaissance soldier. Lots of surveillance, lots of watching the enemy and reporting back. From there, I went on to do 2 further tours with what was known as the Brigade Reconnaissance Force. Rather kinetic, very much going into buildings, finding certain personnel, and again quite kinetic tours. I think, yeah. So then I moved on, and I done another tour, which was in 9 months, training the Afghanistan officers how to fight. So I spent 9 months out there in the officer academy, and that was kind of my career up to now.
Hey, Paul, can I jump in on that? That's you've given us a great example there of how soldiers in the modern army have to be so adaptable. I mean, I counted 4 very different scenarios there. How did you feel how well did you feel you were prepared to make those changes in focus, or did you just literally have to make it up on the fly?
Yeah, I think a lot of the training, I think, especially as you went on. I mean, initially the first part of training because we were kind of rushed through. It's a bit kind of, this is what you're going to be doing, be prepared for it, and then but no one really knew what was going to happen. So he's kind of, you're out in Afghanistan in 2006, and you're just kind of dealing with things as it happens there and then. As the tours kind of went on, there was a good understanding of what was expected, what kind of circumstances you're going to come across. So the training would last up to anything from 12 to 18 months, to be honest. So I did feel like a lot of the training was quite adequate, and I never really went into an area not knowing what the outcome could be, to be fair.
Yeah, I think there's a great. I mean, we previously talked to my wife Michelle, actually, who transitions military veterans into the banking sector, and I think one of the things that comes across from those type of people quite a lot is the adaptability of service personnel, and I think it's something we mustn't forget. About that. So just tell me, how long was your career in the military, and then when did it come to an end?
So I leave in November this year, so I'm getting medically discharged, and that will see me almost 18 years. It'll be 17, just nearly 18 years. Yeah.
Paul, what strikes me about your experience, and I think a lot of people might not realize this, people that haven't served in the military, is that period of time from 2005, 2006 to 2012, 13 was so intense with 2 wars going on simultaneously, and we had soldiers bouncing from one place to another. Whilst ordinarily people may have been well trained and well prepared mentally to fight that particular 6-month operation, the back-to-back nature of these campaigns surely takes its toll. And when you're not on operations, you're kind of training for the next one, right? Do you think that's a factor?
Oh, most definitely. You're just constantly, whether you're out fighting or whether you're back preparing to go out, you're always in that sort of mindset. You've always got that high alert level of I don't know what you like to call it, fear, if you like, high level of alertness all the time, because the training that we go through is, a lot of it is very realistic as to what you're going to be doing. So
yeah,
you're kind of reliving what's going to be happening out there. You're already on that high level of alertness. And then when you go out onto your tour, you spend 6, 7 months, whatever it may be, out in Afghanistan or Iraq, again, that high level of alertness is there the whole time. Mm-hmm. And it can, without realizing it, especially when you're young and you've got all your friends around you and you've got everyone and you've got all that sustainability and all that security around you, you don't realize a lot of the effects it could be having on your brain subconsciously.
Yeah. So when was it that you first realized that something wasn't quite right?
Well, when I came back in 2006 at 20 years old, I'd done pretty much everything you could imagine anyone being on the front line in a heavily kinetic tour could do, including being blown up heavily myself in a very bad ambush. However, when I came back, I was having nightmares and waking up in sweats. But at 20 years old, I kind of brushed it aside and thought, it doesn't mean anything. And had quite a bit of money in my bank account, so I was going out drinking most nights. So I kind of put it down to just drinking, and so I didn't think too much about it. I kind of brushed it away, and it wasn't until a bit later on, a few tours later, I kind of come back and I started getting extremely paranoid and thinking that people were talking about me, walking down the street, being on a bus. I was looking at people, and then they were looking at me, and I started, my anxiety levels were going up. I mean, it's not anything that I'd experienced before, and I was very unsure what was happening in my body, what was happening in my mind. I think initially I kind of put it on other people rather than myself, saying it's them, that there is people are genuinely talking about me. It took a long time for me to actually come to realization that there was something wrong in myself. So I'd say I was on Senior Brecon in 2014, I think it was, after I'd done my 4th tour in Afghanistan.
And just for the people that don't know, what's Senior Brecon?
So Senior Brecon Tactics is the infantry's version of it's their tactics. So they go from corporal to sergeant on this course. It's quite an intense course. I think it's something like 15 or 12 or 15 weeks in the Brecon Beacons in Wales. So when I was on that course, I couldn't sleep for the first 2 weeks. I maybe had 1 or 2 hours sleep, and my instructors were asking what was wrong with me, and I had to tell them that I can't sleep. I don't know why I can't sleep. But I kind of knew why. I knew I was having problems, but I didn't want to admit it. I was just trying to carry on. I think it got to a stage where I physically couldn't function on the course, and the doctors had to come along and say that they removed me from the course, and it was an extremely embarrassing time for me. I was very capable of passing the course, very capable of doing a good job, and I had to go back to my regiment, kind of with my head between my legs, unfortunately.
Amazing to have to realize that within yourself, and have to deal with the ethos of military life in that scenario, Paul. I was going to ask you actually, at what stage did you make that transition from realizing yourself to getting support from other people, whether it be mates or your chain of command or maybe the medical profession? When did that happen?
So from me going back to the regiment, I was still very shut off, and I kind of just said to the doctors, look, it's just me, I can't sleep very well, rather than it still explaining what was going on. But we do have a colonel doctor in our regiment who's very good, and he knows me personally, and thankfully he kind of called me out and said, look, I've seen the symptoms, I know you personally, and there's something a bit more than you're letting on, which allowed me then to open up. So I was very lucky to have him on my side, have him around.
Great. And I was just going to follow up with the fact that there are loads of people facing this kind of difficulty at the moment, aren't there? And I know you're going to go on to talk about the great work you're going to initiate yourself to do that. But just before we go on to that, if you were to give any advice to leaders, whether they be in the military or not, about the early signs of what you went through and how to recognize that, what would that advice be?
I would certainly say anyone who's just acting completely out of the ordinary, if people go quiet and very introvert, some people are introvert people anyway, but if they start going extremely introvert, leaving meetings very quickly, not wanting to talk, not wanting to go down to have social meetings, or even having cups of tea, they're not turning up, or they're leaving very quickly. There are very good signs that they don't want to be in that. They're having very high anxiety levels, and they don't want to be around the area. And I'd certainly be very cautious as to why they're doing that.
Yeah, good advice, Paul. And sadly, because of what the British military has been through for the past 15 years now, the mental health support structure, I think, is getting to be quite sophisticated and for some people effective. But for you, I think you were saying in an earlier conversation that it didn't quite help the way that it should have, and you kind of had to take matters into your own hands to reach inside yourself and figure out how you can move forward in a positive way. Can you talk us through that?
So a little bit later towards the end of what we say my career, before I had to get put onto sick leave and moved away from the military environment, I was I was a staff sergeant. I was in charge of a squadron's stores, and I was doing quite well. But I started going to meetings, and I didn't want to be there. I could feel that my anxiety levels were extremely high, and I didn't know why. And then I'd be sat around the table with everyone, and I could see people's mouths moving, but I couldn't hear words coming out. I physically could not hear anything at all. And I'd be like, "This isn't right," And I'd be looking at people next to me talking, and I was like, "There's something wrong going on in my head." But then at the same time, I could hear down the other end of the corridor someone dropping a pencil or someone scraping a chair across the floor. So I knew there was something seriously wrong, and I was a bit worried that I was starting to lose my head and starting to go mad, and I didn't want to go down that stage. So I kind of opened up very, very abruptly to the doctor and said I need some serious help before something goes south with me. So they sent me to see some people, speak to some psychiatrists, which was great. And it was really nice talking. It's nice talking to people and getting some stuff off my chest that I've never spoken about or didn't even realise. But as soon as that finished, I was back to work again. And almost instantly, the anxiety was up, the paranoia was there. I couldn't concentrate on my work. I didn't want to be there. I was feeling very sheepish and shy around people. And this went on for months and months. And I was really struggling to do my work. And I think that was becoming evident with everyone around me. I've got a lot of friends who were trying to help me out, but they were doing their own work as well. So eventually I went to the doctor and I said, "This is the work you're doing is great, but it's not helping me." I said, "Whatever it is happening inside of me, the triggers are the military. It's the military environment. I go away for a weekend on weekend leave or for a week's leave and I feel absolutely great. I come back and then everything would happen again. And I tried very deeply and very hard for it not to happen, but it was just happening no matter what I did, no matter who I spoke to, no matter what treatment I got. So it became very evident for me that being in the military environment was the problem. So I took it upon myself to move away from the military. I rented a house as far away, but not too far that I can still get into the military. So I was away from the barracks. I was away from anyone that had military clothing on. I started to get a lot better, but things still weren't great because I was getting treatment from the military. So I started looking into positive mindset training. I started looking at YouTube, started looking into books, started reading books, and I started looking at how to change all the negative thoughts that I was getting into positive thoughts through ways of affirmations, through journaling, through visualization, through nutrition, fitness. There's so many different avenues. And that's something I've really been focusing on.
And I guess the advice there to people who may be struggling with mental health issues and perhaps are getting treatment or speaking to people and it's perhaps not working, I guess the lesson is there from you, Paul, is that there are other options. Don't feel like, oh, this is awful, it's not working, I'm doomed. There are other options available to people if they have the right knowledge and can speak to the right people. Yeah,
absolutely. And one of the things that because as I'm setting up this charity, I'm attracting more and more other charities and people doing very similar things. And there were just so many different charities out there, or organizations, or talks that people can go to that isn't military related. Hasn't got a big military feel to them. And it's just about going onto the internet, trying to find these charities, type in whatever it is you need to type in, go onto Instagram and follow these different charities. You follow one charity and all of a sudden more will pop up, and just follow them and see what they're up to, even if it's not for you. And it's good to have a good understanding of who is out there and who can help different people, even if it could be for one of your friends or people that you may know later on in life.
That's great, Paul, isn't it? And there's so much information out there that if you can find it, but often making that first step in the realization that you need to go and find that, and also sometimes getting through the help that people try to give you when they make encouraging comments like, "Go on, mate, you're going to be okay," and that really can be unhelpful sometimes. I know that from previous experience as well. But that sounds like a great point at which to pivot onto this. And Reese is going to give me a hard time about using that word later on. To pivot onto what you're going to do in the coming months, which sounds fantastic. So let's start off by talking. Where did the idea come from for this great thing you're going to do?
So like I spoke about a minute ago, I found out all these great new ways that helped me personally. And I got myself in quite a good place. And it doesn't mean that I'm completely cured and I'm the all singing and all dancing person. But I use these positive mindset techniques on a daily basis to try and help keep myself and on a good level. And it's where I am. And I was very fortunate enough to go to Scotland during the lockdown of the pandemic of the COVID-19. And I was up in the Highlands, completely by ourselves, no one around us. And I've done quite a lot of running and kind of reignited my passion with running that I used to have. And I found myself running around a loch called Loch Tay in Kenmore, and it's 34 miles long. And as I was running around this Loch Tay, it just came to me. I was like, I'm going to be at the army in a few months' time. I've got loads of job offers. I was like, great, but it just didn't feel right. I was like, I've got all this great knowledge. And at the same time, I was talking to, and still am talking to, about 4 or 5, maybe even a little bit more people on a daily basis, trying to help them, friends of mine that are going through the same kind of problems. And I'm thinking, I'm trying to teach them all the stuff that I've got. And I was like, what if I can help people on a more mass scale? You know, I've got all these techniques that I know that work, and it's helping other people. How can I go on living my life, having lovely dinners and doing well in life and being prosperous when I know there's fellow comrades that are struggling and suffering, and I've got some certain techniques that I think can really help them. So whilst I was doing a run, I decided to myself, right, set up a charity. Let's do it. Let's completely go all in. Set up this charity. Let's make a retreat where it's completely got no feel to the military. So kind of like what I was like, where I couldn't get treatment in the military, where they can come to and they can learn all these techniques. You don't need to be a psychiatrist or anything like that. It's just basic stuff. But people can stay there between 7 to 21 days, and they can get the treatment that they need and be there. And quite often, people will. You can go away to a course and you can get taught all this different stuff, but it's hard for people to take it in and for it to sink in. So if they're somewhere between 7 and 21 days, they can kind of have that helping hand. They can get the help that they need, and hopefully they'll be in a good place after that.
Sounds fantastic, Paul, and an extremely honourable and benevolent mission that you have now, trying to get this set up. Clearly it's incredibly challenging to get something like this set up. The cost alone is remarkable. So running around this loch in Scotland, you must have been thinking, right, how can I raise awareness, and how can I find the funds in order to do this, right? And you must have thought about a lot of different options before finally settling on what it is you're going to do. Like how did you make that decision? What was your thought process?
So I know that I'm just one guy with this crazy, idea of helping people, and I really didn't know where I was going to go from there. But it all did come to me when I was running. I thought, well, if I'm going to do this, I need to try and reach as many people as I can to fundraise the money that I need for this charity. Also, I need to reach as many people as I can to help to start creating a team for this charity and start to network. So I thought about running from Land's End to John O'Groats, which is a great achievement in itself. And I thought, well, you're not reaching as many people as you want in there. And also, it's kind of been done. It's not going to get that big, hoo-ha as I'm after. So then I thought, well, in the British military, there's Northern Ireland, Scotland, Wales, and England. I thought, well, if I want to help everyone within that network, let's try and run around try and create a ring of steel, if you like, around the whole of the United Kingdom, which is kind of what I came up with. And I looked into it. Has anyone ever done it before? There's been 4 people that have run around Great Britain, but they haven't included Northern Ireland. So I thought, well, let's give it a go, and in that way, I can reach out to people, reach out to communities, reach out to, hopefully network with lots of people, let people know who the charity name is, start to create a team together, which is what we're doing already, and we haven't even started to run. So we came up with the idea of, I kind of added up what the coastline would be, including Northern Ireland. It was 5,800 miles. So I decided to do that within 200 days.
Yeah, as you say, and as we said at the beginning of the conversation, I feel very firmly put in my place now, having just taken the motorcycle from the southern tip of England to the northern tip of Scotland. What an amazing task! You must be extremely excited about it. I'm sure there's loads of people who are going to watch this that are saying, "How can I get involved?" So, Paul, how can people get involved in this amazing thing you're going to do?
So this is going to be completely solo and unsupported. The run. I say completely, as in there's not going to be a support team. I've had many offers from people. In fact, just yesterday I had an offer for a support team to stay with me through the whole journey, but I've turned them down. The reason being is I want the general public to get involved. I want the general public to be the support team. I want them to feel that they're part of this mental health movement. Even though it's a military thing, I want everyone suffers with mental health of some sort, one way or another. And I want, and one of the reasons why we're doing it during the winter months is because it's people suffer during the winter months quite badly. A lot of people get the winter blues, as you like to call them, but it's a lot worse than that for a lot of people. And suicide rates go up during the winter. So I really want the general public to get involved. And as I move through their towns or their villages, come out and support me. Run a little leg with me if they want to. It's not going to be fast. It's going to be a very slow jog, and there'll be quite a lot of walking involved in it as well. So if people can't run and they just want to walk, I'm more than happy to just walk with people throughout certain legs. But if people want to do a run, if they want to sponsor, they want to fundraise, say they're going to do a 2-mile or anything up to 30-mile run, they can fundraise for the charity. But I'm also looking for shelter throughout the evening. So, like I say, it's completely unsupported. The winter months are going to be horrendous, especially on the coastal line. So, if anybody has accommodation near the coastal line and they'll be willing to put me up for the evening, please get in touch, and we'll speak to them and see if it's feasible, and if I'll be passing through their place. So fundraising, support through food, through shelter would be absolutely fantastic.
I'd like just to pick up on that, what I think is a really interesting point you've raised about doing this in the winter months when people are probably at their most vulnerable. And I think that's something that's already resonating with the general public right now. We're already seeing on the news people talking about how COVID is maybe coming back for a second spike, and that could occur in the winter months. And I think that's already putting those seeds of anxiety in people's minds. So the fact that you're going to do this uplifting thing at Christmas, I can only applaud you. We're going to get some details off you, but very briefly, how can people get in touch?
So I have a website, which is all the W's, www.head-up.org.uk. I am on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, and on LinkedIn. So we've got 5 platforms there where people can reach out to. But if you go to the website, it has everything on there anyway, and you can email me or get in touch that way. During the whole of the run, sorry.
No, go on.
During the run, I will be getting tracked the whole time, and there'll be blogs every single day, so people can follow the journey completely the whole way through, and be in touch and be part of it.
We'll put all the links in the show notes so people can just click below and they can get taken straight to your site, Paul. Something like this has never been attempted. It's so far out there that I can't imagine to try and predict the challenges that you're going to face mentally, physically, logistically. What are you most concerned about in terms of getting round the coastline in a decent time?
So for me, the timing, I really couldn't care too much about. I mean, I don't want to be out there the whole time. I've got a girlfriend to get back to. So I kind of put a limit of 200 days, including rest days, on that. But what I'm most concerned about, I guess, my feet maybe. My feet are going to take a complete battering, especially during, you've got coastal lines, which are going to be extremely muddy and stony. So yeah, my legs, how they're going to take an impact. I've always been very good with my fitness and very good with being injury free. But we'll see. Like I say, my body's never been put through this sort of stress before, so we'll see what happens. But I keep as much of a positive mindset as I possibly can. I try not to overly worry or stress. Just prepare well. But I'm super excited to meet new people. Super excited to see the kind of impact that it has on other people, and already I'm starting to see a lot. So.
In terms of your training, and perhaps there's two aspects to this. Clearly the physical training is critical. I'd love to hear what your preparation is there. You mentioned visualization as a technique that you've adopted to improve your mental health. Have you adopted visualization techniques for this particular event? And if so, how do you do that? What does it look like in your mind's eye?
Yeah, I have. I use visualization every single day. I don't not use it, but I started doing visualization where I just kind of like be in a shower or lay in bed and I visualize what I'll be doing, how it will feel, how try and have the feelings of how I would like to feel during that time. But what actually I do is I like to go on a 2-hour run or an hour run, and I visualize that way, and I visualize myself running along a coastline, meeting new people. I visualize what it will feel like at the end and the people that it's going to help. And so I visualize every single day, every single time I go running. Visualization is a very big part in my life.
And Paul, is there anything that's great as you start to think about yourself doing the run? Is there anything you've already identified that's going to keep you going? What's the key thought that's going through your head that's going to say, I'm not going to give this up. I'm going to keep going.
Yeah, so I think quite a lot of people in the military over the last years. I've lost quite a few friends to them taking their own lives over the last few years. And I remember saying to myself once, a very good friend of mine, who unfortunately is no longer around due to take his own life. I remember saying, I'd do anything to have him back right now. But it's impossible. It can't happen. But what I can do is I can try and stop having to say that again for someone else. And if I would do anything, I would run around the whole of the United Kingdom to have my friend back. I can't do it. So I'm going to run around the whole of the United Kingdom, to keep my next friend and to make sure that he is going to have the rest of his life there.
That's a great thought. Thanks so much for sharing that. That's fantastic. I just want to sort of go back to something you said before, and actually you didn't say it specifically, but I think what people should take away from our chat today is that Paul, you've had an illustrious career in the British military, but you've experienced what a lot of leaders will never get to experience in terms of upfront, hard knock tactical leadership. And you've come through it, and I think there's lessons in that for many leaders. Just to go back and say, look, just remind us again of what leaders in all sectors should be looking for in their people, and the extra aspects of leadership that we all need to take on board to make sure we're addressing the mental health needs of those people that work for us.
Yeah, I kind of like what I said before, just look anything out of the ordinary from people. Make sure people are getting involved with activities. When people become secluded, it's not just, oh, that's who they are, it's that kind of person. There's a reason why they're secluding themselves. It's a reason why they don't want to be involved in something. And we all know that once we sit down and we talk to people, or we some people feel very anxious about being part of a group or part of I don't know, an activity. But once they've done it, pretty much everyone feels good for it. And even if they don't, socially, it's a great thing for them, and it gives them a time to open up and speak to people. If you're a leader, speak to your people individually. Like, literally take the time out. Don't just feel like it's part of a chore or something you have to do. Sit down with them for 5 minutes individually. Ask them about their family. Ask them what's going on, and give them time to speak. Let them speak and see what happens. See how they open up, and build that rapport with everyone around you. Because it could be a big life-changing thing for someone.
Paul, thanks for that advice for people. And I think it's so important that people are aware of this and actively think about it. It's an incredible message and an incredible story. So for the people watching and listening, please follow Paul on social media, Instagram, Facebook. You're on Strava as well. Is that right, Paul? So people can check your training runs. Please share it with your friends and colleagues. Paul, it's been a real pleasure to have you on the show. Thanks for making time, and we will certainly be tracking this very closely over the coming months. When do you start? When's the first day?
So I start on the 28th of November this year, 2020, and I'm starting in South Shields in Newcastle and heading south. So I finish off in leaving Scotland in July or beginning of July.
Amazing. What a great chat, Paul. Thanks so much. I've learned so much from listening to you today. I'm going to put your story on my Movember webpage, just as a great example of someone who's doing something so positive. So been a real pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks all, and we'll see you next time on Tea and Medals.